Yeah, and great marketing should get your audience to know, like, and trust you. I was interviewing him about building great teams, and he was talking about the thing about culture is you have one whether you intentionally build it or not.
Mostly accredited to Theodore Roosevelt, I think. And he said, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
You're listening to the Limitless Leadership Podcast, the podcast designed to help automotive repair shops learn how to lead, coach, train, and manage their team better by sharing proven techniques and thought-provoking interviews from industry leaders. Are you ready to transform your leadership skills by tapping into unrecognized potential to achieve limitless results? Let's get ready for liftoff. It's time to go from great to greater. Here's today's episode.
All right, leaders, whether you're running a shop, leading a team, or leveling up in your career, you know details matter. And if you're like me, that includes keeping your beard on point. That's why I trust the Bearded Brotherhood. Their beard oils, beard balms, and mustache waxes, among other, are made with all natural ingredients, no junk, no shortcuts, just top-tier quality that keeps my beard looking sharp and feeling great. And let's talk scents. Whether it's their best-selling Woodsman or my personal favorite, Lone Stranger, the Bearded Brotherhood keeps me smelling fresh and my beard stays soft all day. If you take your beard game seriously, this is the stuff that you need. And because you're part of the Limitless Leadership podcast family, I've got a deal for you. Just visit thebeardedbrotherhood.co/lead15 to grab your favorite products and get 15% off in the process. Because a great leader deserves a great beard. Now, back to today's episode. All right, everyone, welcome back to the Limitless Leadership Podcast. Before we get started, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, do all the things you need to on social media. Don't forget to go to YouTube at The Bearded Leader and hit that subscribe button. Our mission, as you all know, is to reach people and build leaders, and we're doing just that. And I've got two great leaders in the industry with me today. I'm joined by the founders of Shop Marketing Pros, Mr. Brian Walker, and his beautiful wife, Mrs. Kim Walker. So Walker fam, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely, Josh. Thank you so much.
Well, so before we get started, I always ask the guest to share with our audience who you are, what you do, how you do it. So whoever would like to take that question first to begin exactly what you guys do, take it away. The floor is yours.
Kim, I'll let you go. Okay.
Okay. Go. You go.
All right. So I am Brian Walker. I'm the founder and CEO of Shop Marketing Pros. And at Shop Marketing Pros, we do top tier marketing for top tier shops. We help shops to grow and, to at least take the part that we can in helping them to, make their business become the business that they always dreamt of.
Kim, anything to add to that?
No, I think he did a great job. I was just making sure he hit our line that we love to use, and that tells everything. So he did that great.
Is the line top tier marketing for top tier shops?
That's it.
Because immediately when I hear that, I'm thinking, hey, that's catchy. It got my attention. When you think about top tier marketing, or if I'm a listener of this episode and I hear that top tier marketing, what does that mean to me, the average listener?
Yeah, so we actually spent time defining that, and it's really top tier marketing is essentially custom, personalized marketing for each individual shop. We believe that they all have their own story, their own community, their own clients, their own goals. And so we've had lots of people say before, oh, how do you do marketing for just all automotive repair shops? They're all the same. And we're like, no, they're not. They're all very different. So that's in a nutshell. It's the personal, customized marketing. We may do social media or Google ads for, or SEO or whatever the services are for a bunch of different shops, but it's more about understanding their customer and the message that we're putting out on their behalf.
Yeah, and great marketing should get your audience to know, like, and trust you. That's a old saying, that people do business with people they know, like, and trust.
Yeah.
And, marketing changes constantly, but that is one of those things that will never change about marketing is that people do business with people they know, like, and trust. And your marketing cannot get people to know, like, and trust you if it is the same exact marketing as every other shop that's out there.
Very well said, Brian. We know that the know, like, and trust factor is a real thing. And as you shared, marketing is ever changing, ever evolving, just like a lot of things in business are. What are the things that you're doing to keep that know, like, and trust factor amongst your clients in the midst of you knowing how often changes are going to occur, but maybe they're not expecting it early on?
If I understand what you're asking, it really is about just showcasing the things that are unique about the shop and the people. And especially the people, because, if you listen to that quote again, it's people do business with people they know, like, and trust. And in marketing, a lot of marketers will get caught up in the technical side of, what a shop is doing. And there's nothing at all wrong with, and shops should be educating their clients about, auto repair and the different things that they may experience with their car and all of that. But when it comes to getting people to know, like, and trust you, it is about the people that are in that organization. It goes so far, beyond the brand. And that can be simple things like just showing the successes that the team is having. Somebody got their ASE master certification with L1s, or a team member, they just had their first baby or just bought a home or something like that. That's all about the know and the like part. But then when you have somebody who, somebody on the team that gets there and they're showing the diagnostic process that they went through to find some really difficult problem on a car, or better yet, when they show the comeback, we had this comeback and this is what we did about it. This is how we made it right by the client. That's where you start building trust, so those types of things are, and look, we can only do so much of that. We teach about it. We encourage shops to do it. We have, and that's why we say we do top tier marketing for top tier shops, because we really want to work with those shop owners who will work with us and give us the information that we need. They have to share that stuff with us so that we can then push it out, to their audience or to their world, or write a blog post about it, or whatever. But we can only do that as much as the shops that we work with will allow us to do that.
I think that's very well said. It is a two-way street. And I like the fact that you just pointed out the concept of really highlighting comebacks, which putting those two words together, highlighting comebacks, is almost ironic, but we do know that we connect through authenticity, humility, and vulnerability. And so in an industry that severely lacks trust, this is one way that we can do that, by highlighting the mistakes that we might make, whether it's our fault or really doesn't matter who's. I'm not trying to point fingers at anybody, but the reality is nothing is ever going to be perfect. Perfection is reserved for God. So we get an opportunity to say, look, these things happen in our shop, and what we're going to do is we're going to treat these as opportunities and not inconveniences. And here's how we're going to correct this situation and do so moving forward. Brian, you talked about being able to make it personal, and it's really about the people. People do business with people. I had the opportunity to sit with both of you at the Tools Conference a couple months ago, and we had a good long breakfast. And I was thoroughly impressed with the culture that you described across your organization. And then circle back to just this past weekend, was at another conference, and was able to finally meet two of your team members that both of you raved about. I jokingly shared with Caroline and Haley, and if they're listening, they'll echo this. I said, hey, Brian and Kim raved about you guys. I wanted to see what all the fuss was about. And I'll tell you what, the fuss was real. Talk to the audience about the culture that you guys have within your brand, and how you're able to create and subsequently cultivate that culture.
I'm gonna pass that on to Kim, and the reason why is because I was someone who I never really believed in culture. I didn't I didn't really care about culture until Kim and JR came in and insisted that we were going to build an amazing culture, and took the lead on doing that, and then showed me what it was like to work in a business with an amazing culture, because I am an all-in believer now. But she has been so much more integral in building that than I have. So I'm gonna let you take that one, Kim.
Well, I'll take it, but I almost think that with that intro there, that you're the better one to answer the question, because when you come from a position of non-belief to suddenly being a full-on believer, like that journey is the true testament of how it happens. But I'll jump in here, and then Brian can add in. The thing is, like Brian said, when we had our shop, we were the shop that went to the coaching and went through coaching, and we had our mission, vision, values statement, but it was printed in a beautiful frame, hanging on the wall, and maybe also in our filing cabinet, like the actual physical filing cabinet. Today, it's our, Google Drive. But fast forward, Brian's not giving himself enough credit, because it really, I think, comes back to EOS when we first started really playing with the idea of EOS, and we put together our core values. I would say that that's the foundation of where it all starts. And we're also people of faith. And I think, from attending church, there's this cultural community, if you will, that you find yourself in. And so we worked with our team, and the team, we all together decided what our core values are. And that's where it starts. And they're a part of every layer, every aspect of our company. And it's gotten to the point where our team will not tolerate anything less than the standard of what has been set here. And so when you can build a culture that I don't think we could do it without our core values, is where I'm going. So I would say anyone listening, if someone were to say, what are the core values of your company? And you have to stop and think, or you don't know, then you don't know. They need to be anyone. We have 40 team members. You can ask any team member, what are your company's core values? And they can spit it off like they can say their name.
I love that.
And we truly hire, fire, reward, and recognize. So I think it's not just at the leadership level, but it is all the way vertically, horizontally throughout the entire company. It's how we approach our conversations with one another. It's how we approach our conversations with our clients, our potential clients. It's how we decide if that is going to be a good client to work with. It's part of the pre-qualification process. It's part of decision making on how we're going to everything. I mean, it really comes down to every decision, every person, every if you turn right, if you turn left, if you go forwards, if you go backwards, it's part of everything. And so for us, our core values are we call it our shield. And it was complete serendipity that we were able to find an acronym, that we weren't looking for the acronym. It was after we decided what the core values are. I don't believe in coincidences. I believe that they're all God winks. And so our shield is synergy, happiness, integrity, expansion, leadership, and dedication. And so we have a reward system called our Shieldies, where people are continually, constantly nominating one another for, Michelle may recognize Caroline for exhibiting integrity, and she'll type that up, and it goes out to the whole team. And that's just one little aspect. But, I think that like when we have one child, there he is right there. And when he was a kid, we ingrained in him, I want you to behave when you're here at home, but how you think, act, talk, behave, everything that you do when you walk out that door represents this family. And so without us saying our Walker core values were this, and this, I would hear from people all the time, what an amazing young man he was at 8 years old, 10 years old, 15, and obviously for sure at 22. But to me, that means that he understood what was expected and what our standard is. And that can happen in a business. And I think that that's how you build culture. I mean, we could go through step by step and examples and tactics and all this. But for me, I really believe it comes down to the core values and who you are and what you expect and what you allow, what you tolerate.
Yeah. If I'm a shop owner listening, and because everything you just shared, Kim, I'm thinking, I want that. I want that in my shop, but I don't know how to start. I don't know where to begin. I understand now that the foundation of all of the decisions that I'm making rest on my core values. Walk me through what it looks like to kickstart this foundation and create a list of core values. Do I do it on my own? Do I do it with my team? And how often is my team involved in the decisions that are resting on my core values?
Yeah. So I'll start, and then Brian, throw in there anything that maybe I'm missing. We actually did this, maybe 7 years ago. It might even be longer than that, where yes, our entire team, we sat down together with a whiteboard, and where we started was literally, who are we? And at this time, we weren't Shop Marketing Pros. It was Five Stones Media, which is our original agency where we just helped any local small business. And we just, every word was allowed. There's no discussion. It's say the word, throw it out, and we write it on the board, not even in necessarily a list, just all over. And at this time, there were 10 people. And so we literally just said, who are we? And people would just say a word, we're honest, we're fun, we're innovative, we just throw all these words up. And then the next step was to categorize those words into, lumping them together, all of these words.
Keep, kill, combine.
Yeah. Yeah. So and that's an EOS term, right? So keep, kill, or combine all the words until you've narrowed them down.
Because, if you look at those three things, the keep part, we might have words up there that we're like, yeah, we believe in that, but that's not something that is so strong that we're going to make it one of our core values. Mm-hmm. So we'll kill that. Or, if the ones that are like, oh, that's definitely got to be a core value. Like we believe that to our core, then that's going to be a core value. And then a lot of them, you got honesty and integrity, and, some of it would be sayings, we do the right thing. And it's okay, let's combine those into one word.
Yeah. So once we've done that, now we've got a bunch of words in these main categories. Then we knew that we wanted, kind of the standard is no more than 7, but 5, 6, 7 core values. And so through that keep, kill, combine process, we then looked at the main categories and said, what are the best? How can you've got 10 words here that all relate to this. What is the one real main word that really says who we are, that encapsulates all of that? And from there, we came up with those words: synergy, happiness, integrity, expansion, leadership, dedication. And they weren't in that order. That's just what they were. And for the most part, you can go with that and just put that, say, on your website or include it in your interview questions and all this. But we did try to, we're marketers. So we're like, can we come up with an acronym or something, clever or witty or cute or whatever? And I think, Brian, did you just throw the letters into an?
Yeah, there was a thing online, where you put it's like a word, like a wordsmith kind of thing. And I put all the letters in there, and it was like, what all words can be made up with these? And there was one word, and that was it. And that was
only one.
It was shield. And that, if you think about what a shield does, it protects you. What do your core values do? They protect you. Mm-hmm. And it was like, this is perfect. Like it was one of those God moments where it was like, okay, that is not a coincidence at all.
Yeah. it's kind of that divine meeting, if you will. And Kim, you mentioned earlier that you don't believe that anything happens by coincidence, and this is a good example of one of those such things. I'll ask both of you to share, what role has your faith played in how you lead your team and how you scale your business?
And it's, it plays it plays into every part of it, because it's who we are. When we do business, we're serving our clients, but it's for a bigger purpose. The things that we do, like, it's a difficult question. Okay. But when I think about, I'm going to go back and tell a story. All right. I was having lunch with my pastor one day, and there's a very successful businessman in our community that had made a pretty big donation to the church. And I was talking to my pastor, and it was like, that's my dream, is to one day be able to write a 7-figure check to the church. And he was encouraging me and all on that. Not he didn't say a whole lot about it, but he was encouraging me that, hey, that's a great goal to have. But I remember leaving there, and there's a few times in my life where I can tell you that, like, I felt like God spoke to me, and this was one of those times. And I remember God telling me, if you want to write a 7-figure check to the church, you can start where you're at and write a 3-figure check to the church. Mm. And, we've been tithers all our lives, all of our marriage, we've been tithers, but, this would be beyond the tithe. So, I went in and into my online banking and just said, okay, we're going to send $100 check every month. And, that $100 check within a couple of months, it's like, well, let me do this twice a month. And then it became $150 twice a month. And it's kept increasing. And, we haven't written a 7-figure check yet.
But, the key word.
We've done multiple 5-figure checks. And I tell that story to say that, like, there's kingdom purpose behind what we do, and being able, like, when our church has a need, or to, like, when there's a need in our community, and when I talk about the community now, I primarily talk about, like, the community of automotive, people, to be able to serve those needs. And look, I'm a guy too that, like, I like things. Okay. I'm not going to sit here and try to tell you that everything that we do here is kingdom purpose, because it's not. I want to own a Porsche GT3 RS one day, and believe that I will, and I will, when the time comes, I will spend the money on that. But there are bigger things at play, and being able to give where needs are, and being able to also, like, when we do work, like Kim talked about, how when my son walks out the house, he's representing our family. Well, when we do our work, as Christians, we're representing God, and when you believe that, the work that you do represents God, and when you believe that, like, when one of your core values is integrity, and you're challenged on that, because I promise you will be challenged on your core values. Mm-hmm. But knowing, like, it's one thing to have to live up to a standard that my core values set, but it's a completely different thing to have to live up to a standard that my God sets. Like, I know I'm bouncing all over the place because it is a difficult question to answer, but, like, those are the things where for me, my faith plays into how we operate our business.
Well, Brian, I'll say this. First, thank you for sharing all that. What I hear you say is that because of your faith and because of the core values that you guys have created, because of that shield, there are boundaries. There are regulations that you are falling within these lanes, if you will. And boundaries are not necessarily for us. They're actually for others to let them know what we will and won't tolerate. And when you have core values, when you have that foundational groundwork that you guys have laid down, decisions become easier because it's like we don't have another choice. Like, this is the answer because this is what our core values say, and this is what my God says. Right? This is the standard, and we're not going to allow anything less than that. Like, the way we do anything is the way we do everything, and any decision that gets made is based on these core values and the boundaries that we are setting, and more importantly, keeping.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I would say that not only do they protect you and it's how you make your decisions, but there's no flexibility. It's like you just said, how we do something is everything, or however you said it. But there are times, even I think it was last week, we had a situation, a decision to make where we could have bend it. We could have, bent that a little bit. We could have been a little more flexible. But it was a clear violation of core values for sure. And so it was an absolute. I mean, that's the thing, is that it just doesn't give you any room to have any gray area. It either is or it isn't. And Brian is the one who was like, no, that's not the way that we should go on this situation. And, it just, when the protection part of it is huge. But I'll say, you asked about leadership and how our faith plays into that. I tend to forget about this thing I have right up here. Where is my finger? It says, keep my hustle holy. And generally, very often when I'm coming in to sit down, I'll look at it and it's just a good, quick reminder. And nobody really knows what that is, where it came from. But to me, I know exactly. I mean, it's obvious when you read it, but I kind of had forgotten that it was up there until recently. Have you seen those AI generated podcast babies where Joe Rogan was a baby and whatever? And so our team did that, of Brian and I, and the AI generated Kim baby. It kind of blurred all this out and it put something that was like Peyton up there, but it made this super bright and bold. And in the image, I didn't even know they were doing it. I was just scrolling Facebook and I saw it. And it hit me and I was like, oh yeah, that is sitting right there. And then over here I have, and this is from a group of women. So it's Christian entrepreneurs, female Christian entrepreneurs. She works his way. And it's the charge. I won't read all of them, but I printed this out and that and intentionally left it. I'm not even that super involved in She Works His Way anymore. I still follow them, but I'm not like a paid member. But I put this here, and there's 10 different charges that all are for leading in this secular world, but while you're being a Christian business owner. And the first one says, I will aim to know God more than I aim to be known. I will consume myself with following Jesus, not wondering who is following me. And then there's 10 of them. That's just 2 of them. And so again, occasionally I'll just take, I'll just look at it, when I'm grabbing a pen or something. And those things really keep me focused on everything that I do here. And, I mentor I mentor several of our team members, and, everybody in the world, if they know me, they know that faith is integral to who I am. So when I go into any sort of mentoring session with a team member, or, honestly, even firing people, when I have fired someone before, sometimes faith has come into that conversation because, I just want to have empathy for people because I know I'm letting them go. I'm essentially, they made choices that brought us to that meeting, but
Sure.
I know that I've made a decision to ruin someone's day, maybe their week, their life, whatever. And so faith brings empathy into all of that, not just core values and your foundation of how you make decisions and everything, but how you treat people, how you talk to people, how you put yourself in their shoes. So it's part of everything that we do.
I think it's so great, and I can see it just in the way that you guys, the team members who I've met so far, the conversations that we've had even prior to this recording, I see that it's very evident across your shop, or excuse me, across your brand, Shop Marketing Pros. Speak to the shop owner who what you shared, Kim, was the importance of. What I heard was this concept of we're not going to tolerate anything that steps on the core values. And you mentioned that recently you had, I think you said yesterday, there was an opportunity where you could have swayed otherwise, but because of your core values, the decision was easy. Therefore, you made that decision. There was no question, right? And there's no hesitation in making that decision. But we all know of situations in shops where we're just kind of tolerating this type of performance or this type of attitude, this type of culture killer, because we can't afford to not have this person, or we can't afford to, we need this person in the shop, or there's all these reasons, right? And to us, outside looking in, they're really just excuses, but to that person, they're reasons. And so I don't want to dismiss the real raw challenges that they're experiencing. But what we do know is that the more we tolerate this concept of poor performance or mediocrity, what we're doing is potentially losing the respect of the rest of the team members as leaders. One of my favorite quotes, it comes from Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys. He just passed away recently, but this quote was, "Beware the lollipop of mediocrity. Lick it once and you'll suck forever." Because the reality is, like, you get a little taste and your leader doesn't do anything about that mediocre performance, all you're doing is slowly lowering the bar and slowly lowering the standard. But you guys collectively and with your team are constantly raising that standard. Speak to the shop owner who struggles with allowing mediocrity and tolerating or settling this level of performance or lack thereof.
Core values, they make it easy to make decisions, but they don't make the decisions easy. If anything, they make the decisions
That's strong, Brian.
A lot harder.
Yeah.
But if you accept that mediocrity, or, especially if we're talking about, specifically in relation to core values, if you allow people to break your core values and still be part of your business, then your core values mean nothing. You may as well not have them, because people will look at them and it's like, oh, that's a joke. They don't really believe that. And if you make exceptions to them, it's like, oh, well, we follow the core values when it's convenient. And it's like, that just doesn't work, and that's why I say it's the core values make decisions easy, because you got a tough decision to make. You look at your core values, and very often the answer is staring you in the face. Like, you don't have to make a second thought about it. Doesn't make it made it easy to make the decision, but man, it is hard to always follow those core values. But when you do it, you will never regret doing it. So when you have core values in place, that they represent your brand, they represent you. But if everybody in your organization is not living those core values, then it's a lie. So, you let that technician stay who, doesn't have integrity, and we'll use that. Integrity is one of those that, yeah, it's one of our core values, but it's probably the most common core value that there is.
Mm-hmm.
But if you let that technician stay that doesn't have integrity, they will rot the culture of your organization. And going back to culture, because that's where we started. I was recording a podcast with JR the other day, who JR is my EOS integrator. He's our chief revenue officer, and like I said, he and Kim have just done an amazing job of building a fantastic team. And yes, I've had part of that, as the visionary or the CEO. I make the openings for that to be able to happen. But I was interviewing him about building great teams, and he was talking about the thing about culture is you have one whether you intentionally build it or not. So if you don't have a good culture, that doesn't mean that you don't have a culture. You can have a really bad culture.
Mm-hmm.
And if you allow people to stay, regardless of the fact of how hard it is to hire great technicians right now, you will never build the type of business that has an amazing culture. And I talked about how I used to not believe in that because, I came up in the dealership world, and dealerships mostly don't have great cultures. There's a lot of toxicity. You put a bunch of type A personalities, which most technicians are type A personalities, they're mostly alpha males, and you put them in a room and there's going to be toxicity unless you have an amazing culture to keep that from happening. And then you take that amazing culture and put it in a room with a bunch of type A's and alphas, and you're going to get stuff done, and it's going to be amazing. But that rarely ever happens. So, I came up in that dealership world. The only thing I cared about was give me a stack of repair orders. Let me get my work done. Let me go home. Don't bother me outside of work, and make sure my paycheck is good at the end of the week. That is what I cared about, and tried to do the same thing in my businesses. And it's now having the culture that we have, I could never go back to that. I would never want to work in a business that's like that again.
I want to stop you right there, Brian, because here's the thing. If anyone's listening, what you just shared is super important because you recognize that you never want to go back to that culture again.
Never.
And I guarantee you there are listeners of this episode right now whose culture stands for improvement, and you might have team members who feel the same way Brian feels about potentially going back to the culture. If anything, I hope this is a wake-up call for anyone listening. And so I don't mean to cut you off, but I feel like that's an important message to get out. But keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. And the problem is that I didn't know what I didn't know. And that's where a lot of the listeners probably are, is they don't know. Now, that you have a toxic culture. Mm-hmm. You don't know how good it can be when that changes. And once you've experienced that, you will never want to go back to it. But it takes making those hard decisions when you have that technician or that service advisor or whoever in your business that is just toxic. I don't care how good they are at fixing cars. I don't care that they can turn 100 hours a week. Because look, I had that tech in my shop. Kim knows exactly what I'm talking about. 80 hours was a slow week for him. And I mean, amazing. Rarely had comebacks. But he was toxic. And put in the same situation today, we would fire that person very, very quickly. And yes, it would be difficult to replace him. But until you go through the hard work of getting rid of those people who are toxic and replacing them with people who are, great at fixing cars, but also great at being team players and all of that, until you go through the hard work of doing that, you'll never have that great culture in your business. But man, once you get there, it's amazing.
The thing about that toxic person, when you don't know, because we thought he was phenomenal. We thought he was great. We thought he was a team player. It wasn't until We actually went to a coaching environment where they laid out the different character types of employees. And as we started really focusing and paying attention, that's when we realized, whoa, wait a minute. We actually think we do have a toxic person. And,
It was Mr. Passive Aggressive.
Mr. Passive Aggressive. So in front of us, he was great and amazing. But what was happening behind the scenes, like when we were gone, was just terrible. But the other thing, so there's two things. One is when you realize that you've got the wrong person and you make that hard decision to let them go, which is painful. We just talked to someone yesterday who Brian had a conversation with someone at Tools, and then I just had another conversation yesterday with someone who had to let someone go. Very painful. It was probably traumatic for this person to have to let that person go. They loved them very, very much. They were very close to them. But what I told this person in a text yesterday when I found out what happened was, you making that decision created an opening. Brian talked about openings a minute ago. It created an opening that God can now fill. God can now create the solution. I mean, he can do whatever he wants, but when we're so close-minded and wrapped up and I can't make that decision, that's going to be so hard. It's going to be so painful. It's going to hurt the other person. It's going to hurt me. It's going to hurt the team, whatever. Until you rip that Band-Aid off, as Brian likes to always say, and you just do the hard thing that has to be done, suddenly there's now an opening that can be filled with something so much better. You just don't know what's coming without making that decision and going down that path and creating that opening for something better to come in. And I think that that's something that people just you just got to make the decision and do the thing. I still don't know if the person Brian talked to at Tools has done and he said, I know I got to do this. Like, sometimes people do know. We're talking about, I don't know what I don't know, but sometimes they know and they just are not making the decision to do what they know they need to do.
It's amazing how, I literally just lost my train of thought. You shared something, Kim, and it might come back to me, but I think everything you just shared, as well as what you shared, Brian, is important. This is it. Live TV, folks. So it's amazing how when you make the move, you're so afraid of what could be or what will be. It's going to be tough. It's going to be challenging. You're losing someone who performs but has a terrible attitude, a toxic culture. They're a culture killer. It's amazing how the rest of the team falls to their highest level of preparation, because when the pressure's on, we don't actually rise to the occasion. We fall to our highest level of preparation. And what you've done as an effective leader is you've prepared your team for the tough times, the challenging times, where it's okay. We know it's going to happen. We don't know when it's going to happen, but we know it's going to happen. And when it does, we're ready. We're prepared. That's a sign of an effective leader. I'll ask you to share, either one of you or both of you. If I were to ask you, what does leadership mean to you? How would you answer that question?
Man, that is...
You gave us a heads up about that. And I that's just like, what does it mean? I think it's...
I think leadership is about getting people to do things because they trust you and they want to follow you rather than they're being forced to do something. And also when the things that you are doing are turning other people into leaders, like when you do things that are enabling people now to do things that they used to not be able to do, and they can do it without you, and they make the right choices without you. To me, that's leadership. We talk about leadership is the L in our shield, and we talk about it amongst our team that every single person there is a leader. And it's not, we're not talking about leadership when it comes to the accountability chart, because we have our accountability chart and there's people that actually have, the title of like team leader. But it doesn't matter where you're at on that accountability chart. Other people are watching you. And when you are setting an example that other people would want to follow, or that they should follow, that is leadership. It's about doing the right thing. It's about like making the people around you better. That's really the only way that I know, to define it, other than going to Webster's and grabbing their definition of it.
Which
Kim,
even that, I'm not so sure is probably great and includes everything. It's very hard to just say leadership is blah, 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 period.
Yeah.
It's like, that's the part that I'm having a hard time with, because it's so much, it's so many different things. And I love that graphic that somebody created, and now there's multiple versions of it, where it's the difference between a leader and a boss, right? The leaders, the boss is the one out in front and pulling and or standing up on a pedestal, pointing and telling where to go, whereas the leader is down in the trenches with them. But it's like Brian said, when you have been the example and people, there's transparency and vulnerability included in leadership, where they get to know you on a level that they know how you would say this or how you would do that, or this is the solution to the problem. It's I think Brian said, when you're gone, what did they do? And we were just on an epic vacation where we, like a dream vacation, we thought that's way out of range. We're never going to be able to do that. And then we realized it actually is totally doable. And so we were in the British Virgin Islands, island hopping on a catamaran, where we
that does sound epic
with multiple people, and we just shared the cost. And it was, we spent more on our cruise at Christmas with Peyton than we did on this. But while we were gone, we didn't work. Probably collectively, both of us combined probably didn't work 5 minutes, honestly.
Good for you.
And while we were gone, I had to let someone go 2 days before we left. The hiring process started to replace that person. And while I was gone, they finished it. And
That's
then
amazing.
While we were gone, one of our team members had some health issues she had been having for a while. And while we were gone, she had to resign, and like immediately. And so I didn't even know. I didn't, HR is my department. I didn't even know until after she resigned, and they had already updated the job description, posted the job, filtered candidates. They were already well into the process. And so that's a very long answer, but leadership is, they were empowered to do what they knew needed to be done and not be handheld or micromanaged or relied on me for anything. It's like, here's what we know we need. It came back to our core values, dedication. We got to get this done. We can't wait for them to be back in 2 weeks before we hire someone. And so, I think it just comes down to all of that. And we've had so many leadership conversations in every realm of life. Peyton, he's at West Point, and watching the leadership development that happens there, or his first job when he worked at Chick-fil-A, and what he learned from Chick-fil-A and how that instilled certain character traits or habits or the idea of discipline inside of him. And, he's had every semester he has a military grade he has to get. And oftentimes he has to write an essay where they give him a certain number of character traits of a leader, and he has to write an essay giving examples and explaining what it means. And he's constantly having conversations with Brian, or we're talking about, what does it look like to be a leader on the battlefield when you're leading a platoon or a company of soldiers, and you have to make a decision very quickly. And So I think it's super difficult to just leadership is blah, 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 blank, but it's such a big concept that includes so many different things.
Well, I think you just nailed the answer. Peyton, if you're listening, thank you for your service. I think it's incredible, and it's a testament to you guys on how situations were handled when you guys were on your dream vacation. Because for you, first and foremost, good for you for actually shutting the laptop down and not working, enjoying your vacation the way a business owner or anyone for that matter who's on vacation should. And secondly, the fact that your team has been empowered through your leadership, through the culture that you guys have created and cultivated. That's a strong testament to the way that you guys are leading your organization. My last question, actually I have two more, but one question is, what is the best advice you've ever received from a coach or mentor?
So I'm going to go with a mentor that has no idea that he's a mentor. And this is going to kind of sound like a Sunday school answer, but whatever. That would be from Jocko Willink. And it's the book Extreme Ownership. And I know that people love to, they love to talk about reading Extreme Ownership or whatever, but that is the most powerful tool that I think that I've ever employed personally is taking extreme ownership. When you look at something and you may not have directly had anything to do with it, but when you step back and look at, okay, how could I possibly be responsible for this? How could I have done something different that would have kept this from happening or made the outcome different? It is such a powerful thing because when your problems are caused by somebody else and you're just a victim and there's nothing that you can do about that. But when you can find the way that a problem is caused by you, well, you can fix that. Like you can do something about that. And I have instilled that throughout our team. And I've watched our team start taking extreme ownership of things instead of, oh, this person did this. It's, you know what, if I had done this differently, that would have never happened. And man, it's powerful when you start operating that way.
Kim, same question. Best advice you've ever received from a coach or a mentor?
Yeah. And so kind of similar to Brian, this person doesn't know me and I don't know this person. It's a quote. And it goes back to when I was a school counselor. And I had this quote in my little counseling office and I still use it to this day. I think it's even in a couple of my classes, but it's mostly accredited to Theodore Roosevelt, I think. And he said, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so I think it just comes back to this. I'm the touchy feely emotional counselor, right? So I think it's the empathy part, just trying to understand and truly let people know that you do care about them. And I think that when I'm in a gray area, I tend to fall back to that in leading myself in whatever situation I'm facing. So I think that advice of get out of your own space and just care about people and love on people and help take care of them, serve them. I believe fully that I was created to be on this earth to teach, connect, and serve. And none of that can be done if you don't lead with empathy.
It's incredible what happens when you start showing up as a connector first. It's connection before content, but because what we know is that connection creates engagement, and engagement is what increases performance. And when you start connecting, the level of engagement across the entire team immediately gets created and goes up. And if you're listening to this episode, and if you want to watch this episode, so we reference Peyton, there's a picture of Peyton behind Kim in this episode. If you go to YouTube at The Bearded Leader, and I don't know if this is going to show up or not, but what I see, Kim, it says Kim Walker, and then underneath her name is her title, Queen of Connections. And Queen of Connections, that tells me the same thing you just shared. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And you can model that through empathy. You can model that through connecting. And ultimately, connection is what creates engagement, and engagement increases performance. my final question for both of you is, Shop Marketing Pros. If I'm a listener, if I'm listening to this episode, how can I get in touch with you? Where can I go find out more about Shop Marketing Pros?
Best thing to do is go to shopmarketingpros.com. And we have a discovery call request button at the top. And then also go into any of the industry groups and ask about us. I love when that happens.
You can just go in and do a search and you'll find plenty there based on what Brian's talking about. But
and it's not all perfect because we're not perfect, but that's those would be the two things to do. Go search the groups, go post in the group and ask.
Yeah. And folks, I'll tell you, I'm in the groups, and yeah, maybe it's not all perfect. It's pretty close to perfect. I mean, Shop Marketing Pros has made a name for themselves for a reason. And so if you're, and I didn't mean to step on your toes just now, Brian, but I'm just going to echo what you're saying. All you got to do is go just step into any one of the groups, and you'll see Shop Marketing Pros is a top tier company for top tier shops. It's top tier marketing for top tier shops. Hopefully I got that right.
Yep.
Well,
Brian, Kim, thank you so much for being here. This will not be your last time on the Limitless Leadership Podcast.
Awesome. Thank you for having us. We've enjoyed it.
And as you know, every episode we look to transform our leadership skills by tapping into unrecognized potential to achieve limitless results. So thank you again, everyone, for being here. Don't forget to smile today. Tell your loved ones how much they mean to you. I'm Josh Parnell, reminding you to keep leading well.